students and others right off the Appalachian Trail. If this was out west, this would be prime territory for a vision quest. The vision quest that young Native American men and some women would have that go out into the wild, starve themselves, torture themselves in some cases to create the experiences that are the vision that guides them through the rest of their life. So I believe this is the same, a locale which would have been perfect for that, and the walls point to it. Then there's a break at the mountaintop. It keeps going there on the left, or resumes, and it butts the bottom of the scree slope with these jagged rocks at the top, and up among the jagged rocks is this enclosure, a little hut. And there's actually there's a Cherokee description of a house used by a shaman somewhere in northern Georgia that is similar to this form-wise. So another mountaintop in the Blue Ridge where there's our extensive stone structures is Coal Mountain in Amherst County. Wonderful balds. Mount Pleasant, if you've ever hiked there, is in this vicinity. So this is a view looking into Rockbridge County. The other way there are views looking into the Piedmont. And on the left is a LiDAR image of one end of it. And let's see. See that sort of linear winding structure there? And it's almost impossible to see in this view, but at the bottom end it starts at a little spring. There's a kink. Goes up, goes into this rock field, this formation of boulders, sort of ends there. It's continued as little cairns, then it resumes as a wall, does that same thing. Up near the top, it butts into the bottom of this sort of terrace-like stone structure, and then resumes at the top, and then continues on, and essentially wraps around the summit of Coal Mountain, which is roughly 4,000 feet tall. I hike up there a lot because it's near Lexington, and I used to see sections of this wall, and I thought, well, you know, the farmers built it to control livestock or something. I didn't really pay attention. When I realized it might be Native American, I traced it. It took me 4 days to walk the entire length and all the spokes coming off of this wall system. It's very extensive. Partly why it took me so long is it will stair-step up these jagged outcrop spines that go up the side of the mountain, kind of jump from boulder to boulder. Oh, I didn't talk about what was on the right. So at the other end is this snake-headed form boulder outcrop that the wall actually goes up on. And there's sort of an aspect of showmanship almost, of virtuosity in how the stonework is done. That's on the sloping edge of that boulder. So somehow they got the stones to stay there for hundreds of years. And then just up a little bit from this section of this end, the snakehead end, oops. It has this sort of undulating form. So and you're probably doing this in your head right now, you're sort of comparing this to what a farmer might have built and what someone else might have built. If you wanted the wall to be at a certain height, you wouldn't make it less that height. If that height was sufficient, the lower height, you wouldn't make it higher than that. So, so you can do you run sort of logic programs on all this, and for me, it always points, unless it is actually European stonework, it points towards Native American construction. And then this is, you walk around the side of that snakehead boulder, and it has this form, sort of a roosting bird. And I won't get too far into the weeds on this, but when John Smith encountered these structures in Tidewater, Virginia in 1620s, or actually I guess first 1607, he noted that the Native American word for them was pacorance, which was their word for a stone altar that they would build wherever there was some event of importance. And he also noted that they would often decorate them with red, with blood, or other substances, suet I think he included. So things that were of value or important. Later on, there's, and this I believe is in Beverly's History of Virginia, he says that pacorance was the word for whippoorwill. So maybe there's something going on here between a stone altar and the form of a whippoorwill. And the whippoorwills were thought to, you didn't want to hear a whippoorwill. That was a bad sign of someone dying or some bad event. Another aspect of the Coal Mountain wall system are these little structures that are sometimes on the wall, like in the lower right, or sometimes on the left. They're sort of continuing the wall, and also the upper right. The wall has disappeared, but these little structures and other cairns have continued it, and then it resumes. Back to Bruiser's Knob on Sinking Creek Mountain, Montgomery County. So Montgomery County sides here on the right. Here's the LiDAR imagery. There are some linear features, which actually I didn't notice when I was in the field, so these may be very subtle, sort of earthen berm type things. What I was noticing were all the little pimple-like forms, which are stone piles and stone cairns. Many of them are beautifully crafted. They have this sort of beehive form or this sort of ski jump form on the right. A lot of them sort of circular. Another aspect of this site is the stone up there. It's Rose Hill Formation sandstone. Weathers into these wonderful little brick-sized blocks. So it's like God has spread Lego blocks out on the landscape and said, go to it. Here's probably the most complex of these cairns. It has this basal niche with this lintel stone at the bottom that's 4 feet long. Has a stone on the right with a sort of concavity propped up against it. Comes to a little peak at the top. Around back, it has a sort of broken appearance with the inside sort of spilling out. And on the left, and then there's the detailed view of it, the facade is wrapped around and has this sort of leaning rockwork form. When I saw that, I immediately thought, okay, dome. A dome has rocks that lean and then eventually they reach the top and it's all structurally sound. I thought maybe this was a collapsed dome of some sort. But then, nearby, there's another cairn with the exact same thing. I think this is the finished appearance. And leaning stonework, as you probably know, if you ever build a garden wall, it doesn't work. It falls over. So this is, again, that virtuosity where they're depicting something with this sort of lean of the stonework and the broken form of stuff spilling out. I think potentially an egg. So whereas the serpent monsters are one of the great mythical beings that most of these structures refer to, this might be a reference to thunderbirds, which are associated with mountaintops, where this is a mountaintop. Maybe thunderbird eggs. And that's just a guess, really. The leaning stonework is stacked, and here's 3 views from the Cahays serpent effigy, where in European-derived stonework, if you want it to be structurally sound, you overlap it. It's called bonding. And we actually have an expert on bonding at the center here, Mike Pulis from the State Historic Preservation Office, West Regional Office in Salem, has written a great book on brickwork in our region of Virginia and on various brick bonds. So that gives it strength. There's sort of an interlocking aspect. Here, clearly, that wasn't the issue. It's little vertical stacks, columnar stacks of stone. Now, it's all stood there for many, many years, so it's tying into something behind, but it's not doing that bonding across the face of the wall. And then here are 3 examples of it in other states. So I think this is another hallmark of Native American construction. Okay, I've structured this talk with sort of the main section, then we can go into questions and answers, and if anyone wants to leave at any point, then feel free. And then I have some follow-up questions if any of you want to continue on to, I guess we can go on to noon or so.
Do we have time, Linda?
I don't know, 12, I think.
Okay. All right, so if there's time, we'll
That's good.
do that. So I want to talk about something that I think of as temple forming. And I guess I was inspired by that. There's, in science fiction, there's the notion of terraforming Mars to make it more Earth-like and habitable. So I think some of these structures are temple-forming mountains. You're taking a mountainside and you're giving it the appearance of a temple, of a Native American temple, which was a very important central structure in any Native American community. And here's an example of one. This is a photograph from the 1930s, excavated by the TVA, the mound here in Tennessee, with, they found these wonderful wooden steps going up to the top. So this is perhaps similar to the form I think they're representing. Before I get into the Virginia examples, I'll show an example from Chocolaco Mountain in northeastern Alabama that Harry Solstein, an archaeologist down there, has extensively documented. He's found this wonderful sort of bowl-like alcove near the top of the mountain, lined with these concentric arcs of stone. And they're not really terraces, and I'll show you an example of one here. They're widely separated. The hillside continues sloping above and below them. There could be the sort of this representation of this ascending stair-like or terrace-like form. So I'm going to run through a bunch of examples in the Blue Ridge, mostly in Amherst County and a few in Montgomery, where there are the little sections of these sort of terracing or step effect. And on the left, of course, is the LiDAR representation, visual. This is actually on the bottom end of there's a creek, and then the bottom end of the LiDAR is the hillside where these terraces actually are. But then there are earthen terraces on the north side which show up on LiDAR. LiDAR, you can shift the quote-unquote illumination to bring out various features, and I don't know how to do that, so the USGS site has them sort of baked in. I just use what they have, so sometimes it shows what I need, sometimes it doesn't. Here's Nelson County. He's sort of more cairn-like, but then stepping up a draw, mostly dry water course. And then two examples on Gap Mountain, sort of near the New River in northern Montgomery County. One I call the amphitheater complex because it has that sort of terraced appearance, and then the other is just way up high in the mountainside. And it's these cairns, it almost has sort of looks like braille, almost in LiDAR. And this, again, when you run the logic program on this, some archaeologists will claim these cairns and piles are field clearing. And there's